Hi there, and welcome to I'll Knit If I Want To. I'm Andrea Mowry of Andrea Renee Knits, and this is a weekly podcast where I try to answer some of your questions. I actually forgot to open up the question holder here. So while I do that, I'm wearing the Attune shawl today. I thought, you know what? Let's just attune it up. Last week I wasn't technically wearing it, so I have it on this week, and I'm pretty happy about it. All right, pull up the questions. Hope they loaded. Yeah, they did. Okay, so anyways, yes, this is the Attune shawl. There is an Attune shawl knit along kicking off today, because today's actually Thursday, not Friday. It's Friday for y'all, Thursday for me. But it kicks off today, so it's a spin along, knit along. I chatted about it last week, but we are spinning for and knitting this shawl. So this is my hand spun version, and I love it. I don't know about y'all, but I find that a lot of times I love my FOs, my finished objects, even more when I'm months, even years out from making them. Does that ever happen to you? The other day, I think I was looking for an old photo for some reason, and I ended up going through quite a few of my previous design photos, and I was just like, dang, like some of these are pretty good. And I just feel like this shawl, here's what I think it is. I think that when we are in the midst of making something, and I think that this can be anything, it doesn't have to be knitting, but I think when we are in the midst of making something, sometimes we can get caught up with our own human imperfections and doubts and imposter syndrome and all those little voices that kind of keep us feeling maybe a little nervous, or a little like, oh, is this gonna look good? Am I gonna be happy with it? And so I think after we've finished something and we've had a space from all those feelings that can come up during the actual making creative process, they all drift away. It's like after you've given birth and somehow your memory becomes real fuzzy on all the discomfort of labor and all glowy about what you're left with. So all my little knit babies, after I have gone through the pain of birthing them, I'm just left with the rosy glow of like the creation. And yeah, I think when I was knitting this, there was part of me that was like, oh, is my hand spun not good enough? Does it look good? Am I happy with how I ended up combining those colors during the spin? All these things. And now I'm just like, look how cool that is. I love how those colors work together. Like, I couldn't be happier. So anyways, happy Friday, everyone. Let's answer some questions. So the first question is on alternating skeins. And I'm going to be real honest right up front. I pretty much never alternate skeins. I don't like it. It's a little bit of a joy sucker for me. Now, I do see the value in it, and I think that a lot of times what's going to suck our joy even more is if we finish our object, whatever we're making, and we have these awful kind of unintentional blocks of color because the skeins didn't perfectly match up. So I do think there's value in alternating skeins, but I do avoid it if I can. So I am not going to be the foremost, what's the word I want? Mind? I'm gonna go with mind. The foremost mind on alternating skeins. Profesh. So to the question. Is there a technique for alternating skeins when working in reverse stockinette or in garter stitch? When I use the carrying up method that works great for stockinette, I end up with visible dimples on the right side unless my gauge is loose. They're very uniform, so it doesn't look terrible, but I'd rather have it be invisible. Any help you can offer will be much appreciated. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was the garter stitch. Unfortunately, in garter stitch, you're gonna have a jog. So regardless of alternating skeins, garter is basically like striping. So if you think about when you're striping in colors, we're just striping in texture. So we have our knit V's, our stockinette, and then we have our purl bumps, our reverse stockinette. We're alternating that. So what happens is, because when we're working in the round, we are actually working on a spiral, not in a circle. The lines of the purl bumps is really what we're seeing are going to have a jog. They're not going to be perfectly lined up. They're going to be more like this. There's going to be a step at the beginning of your round. So that's just going to be there. Now with reverse stockinette, I have had to alternate skeins when I am fading or striping or things like that. And I actually really prefer to fade either in garter or reverse stockinette because it blurs the lines of our contrast better for a more cohesive fade. So I was actually thinking about this, and I don't think I've run into this myself. I did simply just carry up. One thing that did pop to mind is, how are you carrying up the yarn? And maybe try doing it the other way. So depending on how you're wrapping your two yarns, try doing the opposite of what you did last time and see if that helps. The only reason I thought of that is because I haven't had that issue, and maybe I'm just knitting looser than you, or maybe I'm wrapping mine the opposite direction of you, and that could kind of help the little bit of irregularity that you're seeing. But because I knew I wouldn't be awesome at answering this question, I did do a little research for you. And so I found a link, and I'm putting it below, but I'll read it out too if anyone just wants to search it. I know sometimes people can't find the description box. It's right below this video. Usually you click on like show more or something like that. But it was from Skein Yarns blog, and they had a whole post on how to alternate skeins using different methods. So I was like, wow, this is so comprehensive and a much better job than I was gonna babble about. And they did one, it's called the yarn forward method. And I saw that pop up a few times when I was trying to search the old interwebs. And so that one seems to be popular. They also mention helical? Ah! Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Helical? We should practice some of these things before I start recording. That. Or same as like my other idea, which she mentions in there, is like jogless stripes. And I was kind of curious if doing a jogless stripe method might help hide that alternation as well. So anyways, the link is going to be skeinyarn.com/blogs/notions/how-to-alternate-skeins. You'll probably just want to go click that link below. That'll be a lot easier. But anyways, I thought it was a great blog post, so I hope you find that helpful. And if you find anything in there that really works well for you, please come back and let us know in the comments so we can all learn from you. All right, next question. I have knit a blanket in a log cabin pattern. Now I want to add on an edge to give it a cleaner look. Is it possible to knit the border in the round? Yes, it is. Do I add stitches in the corners on every row? I would do every other. I hope this makes sense. It sure does. And I think what I'm asking is, do I increase stitches in the corner on every row? So yes, so I absolutely would pick it up in the round, but I would increase every other row just like we do in a shawl. So increasing every row would be, I think, too many stitches. You might end up getting kind of like a ruffle, like a pucker at the corners. So what I would do is sorry, I just started thinking. So you could do a couple things. So pick up your stitches around your blanket, and you have 4 corners. Let's say it's a square or a rectangle. So I would either place a marker at each corner, or I would allow a center spine to be at each corner, and I would place 2 markers at each corner on either side of that center spine, just like with a shawl. And I would increase on either side of that spine. But you don't have to do the spine. I just like how it looks, but you could absolutely just use the stitch on either side of your 1 marker. And you would so you're gonna do 2 increases per corner, every other row. And that's why you don't need it to do it every row, because you're already double increasing on your increase rows. So just do it every other row, like every right side row, and that'll be plenty. And I think it'll be really beautiful. It'll give you a nice little mitered corner. So if you think about like the corner that we get on a shawl from doing those double increases, just like a little blanket corner. And I think it'll look really nice. And you can choose whatever increases you like. You could do make ones, knit front backs. If you're doing garter stitch, you could do yarn overs, whatever fits your fancy. All right. I love this. So there's a bit of a paragraph leading up to this question, and I just have to share the last sentence of it because this knitter says, my kids joke about me having to have my time with Andrea to be happy, and I love that. Well, thank you for spending time with me. I'm so happy I'm part of your self-care routine. Okay, so the question is, I'm knitting a top-down short sleeve sweater in the round. The beginning of the round is in the middle of the back. I worked through the pattern of the yoke, did the raglan increases, and then separated the sleeve stitches from the body. All is good. But then one line completely threw me. The beginning of round is now at the right underarm. What? How did the beginning of the round move? Is it a design choice, or is there some logical reason that my brain can't figure out? So it is a design choice, and there is a logical reason for it. Basically, a lot of top-down sweaters start at the center back neck because it is the best point to kind of situate your shaping around that back neck. A lot of times we have short rows that build up the back of the neck, and so it's just really easy to have this center guideline building up the shaping of that sweater. But having your beginning of round be smack dab in the middle of the back of your sweater isn't really ideal. So when we can move it, we do. So once that designer got to the separation of the yoke, they were like, okay, it really doesn't benefit me anymore to have the beginning of the round be in the center of the back. So I'm going to go ahead and hide it at the underarm. And so all they did was move it a quarter of the stitches or whatever over and said, okay, now this is your beginning of the round. You will have like a quarter round of extra stitches for that one section, but you will never ever know. It won't impact the sweater at all, but what it will do is, especially if there's any kind of patterning going on in that sweater, if it's color work, stripes, texture, any of it, a lot of times, because if you are working in the round, which you are, then you can get a jog or a step, because as I said in that first question, when we work in the round, we aren't actually working in a circle, we are working in a spiral. So between every level of the spiral, just like a spiral staircase, there are steps, and we can see that. It often creates a visible line. A lot of times that's just part of it, and we don't really worry too much about it. We let there be a line, but if we can hide it, we will. So that is what that designer did, is they moved your beginning of round underneath that underarm, just because it's a more, I wanted to say auspicious place. I don't think I'm using that word right. It's a more hidden area for that beginning of round. So there you go. That is why they did that. I love the Attune shawl and am eager to knit one during the knit along. Yay! And would love to use a set of spin cycle yarns I have put aside for the shift, which uses 3 skeins. So that's why they are thinking of now using it for the Attune shawl instead, which also, when I knit my commercial sample, so that those of you who don't spin yarn would have some ideas, I used spin cycle because it's so similar to hand spun yarn. It looks like you switched off one yarn to another versus using all one skein and moving to the next. Would love to hear how you used your yarns to get that beautiful effect you obtained. So I really did use the majority of each skein of those 3 skeins. What I did was, so whenever I wind up my hand spun or a yarn like spin cycle yarns that changes color, I always do a center pull ball, because that way I have 2 options for where I want to pull from, depending on what color most closely goes with what I'm trying to achieve. So during that shawl, I wound up each of my cakes, and I think before, if I remember correctly, before I even started knitting, I kind of had them lined up, and I knew, okay, I'm gonna pull from like the outside of this one, but once I get to the inside of this one, it matches better with the inside of my next cake, kind of a thing. So to put that a little more succinctly, all I did was used up the most of a skein. I did stop always so that I could stop on an edge. I don't love switching yarns partway through the row of a flat object. When you're working in the round, even then, I like to keep it to a side seam, somewhere where I can kind of minimize it, because even when we are really great at weaving in our ends, it adds a little bulk there because there's twice as much yarn as everywhere else. So I really do like to keep it to the edges. So my rules when I used for my second sample were basically always change colors at the edge when I'm changing to a new ball of yarn. And I would just look at the next ball I was going to use and say, okay, which would look best going from the color I'm currently about to run out of to the next color in this ball. And let's say you're getting to the very end, you know, that this shawl is so great because it's completely adaptable in size. You can knit it as big or small as you want it. So you can say, I want this thing as big as it can get. I'm going to eke out every little bit of this yardage. Or you can be like, oh, I'm getting to this last little bit of this ball of yarn. I don't love the last color in here. I would just end it then. Join your new one. Or, oh, if I end it right here, it's going to go really, really well with my next ball of yarn if I pull that one from the inside. Kind of a deal. So I hope that makes sense. That's basically how I managed the yarn. Last question. I'm just flying through these, and I've only had 1 cup of coffee. Okay. I have knit the Harlow worsted 3 times, and I cannot get the cast on loose enough. The hat is the perfect size, but the cast on is so tight even when I did it with the larger needle size for the pattern. What am I doing wrong? So I'm assuming you are doing the tubular cast on that the pattern calls for. What's interesting is typically what happens with that cast on is a lot of people, it's too loose and they actually have to drop down a needle size. So you're not doing anything wrong. It's just too tight for how tight you want it. So one option is don't stop at going up 1 needle size, go up a couple and see if that fixes it, if you really love the tubular cast on. The other option, nix the cast on and just do twisted German cast on. I have a video for it here on YouTube. I'll actually add that. I got all happy about my typing and forgot what I was saying. Twisted German cast on. Oh yeah, so you can just swap out a different cast on, because at the end of the day, what's important is that what you're making fills you up, gives you joy, makes you happy. And if the cast on is too tight and you're battling it and it's sucking your joy, then it's not worth doing. Throw in the twisted German cast on. It will give it a lovely, beautiful edge. It's not as finicky. What I do love about it for hats is that it's completely reversible. So even if you wanted to like knit longer so you could have a flip up brim, that cast on is going to look exactly the same, the front and the back, unlike like the long tail cast on, which has a right and a wrong side. So it's a beautiful reversible cast on that is pretty nice and flexible. That being said, if you're like, but I love the tubular cast on and how it looks with this hat, use your tools to achieve what you want. Don't be afraid to go up a couple more needle sizes if it helps you achieve a looser cast on, so that you can then drop down and knit the hat on the needles that work for the body of the hat the way you like it. I always say, let it bring you joy and let your tools do the work if you can. Okay, so I will include a link to this shawl pattern below, as well as links to the info on the knit along if you want to jump in. And now I have some show and tell again. I'm just full of it. All right, so I can close this. We're done with that. Oh, sorry, everything's okay. So if you're on Instagram, you saw my most recent post. I am in full tour de fleece prep mode. If you don't know what tour de fleece is, an amazing knitter, spinner, many years ago now, and I really wish I'd looked up their name. I'm gonna type that in here so I can link to them and give them credit for coming up with this fabulous idea. Maybe I can even search it really quick. Look at that. Look at this technical excitement. Okay. Star Athena is credited with starting Tour de Fleece. So the whole point of it is that basically you spin during the days of Tour de France, and there's all kinds of fun little things that people do where, like, on the really hard days of the race, they spin something harder on their wheel or set a harder goal. You can join teams. A lot of people get on a team. But basically it's just a really fun push to spin and make some yarn. And you can set your own goals. You can join a team and participate in their goals. A lot of people participating in the Attune spin along, knit along are spinning for the Attune shawl. So that can be really fun to have a joint goal of spinning for something. But in general, I've never really been prepared to participate because I usually am in a sewing mania this time of year with spring coming and everything. I'm usually sewing a ton. I actually have not been doing much sewing. Gotta get over to my sewing machine. But I have been spinning up a storm. It is all I want to do right now. I have been loving it. So I have been in a frantic must finish all the projects and clear off all the bobbins. So I just thought I would show y'all kind of what I'm working on with my spinning. So I showed this yesterday on Instagram, but about a year ago, I got this amazing bat from Brittany of Crux Fibers. And I'm sure I showed the bat in videos from a year ago if you went and looked. And so I just spun it up on my flat iron with zero plan. I just wanted to spin it and I enjoyed it so much. I loved all the little colors that came up from like the sari silk and everything that's in there. But then I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this. I was thinking about even just winding it into a center pole ball and doing a 2-ply. But it wouldn't have been much yardage. I was like, well, I could knit some sweet little mitts. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to be able to stretch the yardage of it. So it has sat for about a year. Then, serendipitously, my Hello Yarn Fiber Club. So Hello Yarn is one of my absolute favorite fiber clubs. Come on, focus, there it is. And it's a monthly fiber subscription. And this month's was this beautiful colorway that so perfectly accented that bat with all these yellows and blues, a little bit of like ochre-y, orangey yellow. So anyways, a little bit of lavender. I just got it like a week ago and was immediately got it on my wheel. So all that to say, this is going to be a 2-ply combo spin. And so this is basically, I have a ton of plying to do. That's really what I'm getting to with all this. So we got to apply that. And then I showed you this. This is going to be my new Traveler summertime sweater. I've decided this is going to be my birthday knit. So I'm turning 40 this summer. And we are going camping for quite a bit of my birthday month. We have like 3 different camping trips planned. And so I decided this is going to be my camping project. I will open up a spin along, knit along for this if anybody wants to join me. Obviously, I have a head start on the spinning. But I'll probably do the same thing that I did with the Weekender, which is about to wrap up, and give it about a year. So here are my last 3 bobbins for that spin. So this is my other plying job I need to do. I'm going to do standard 3-ply. This will make about 2 of these, oh my goodness, big skeins. So I don't know if you can see the difference. This is like a single 4-ounce. It's very fluffy and squishy. And then this will be closer to about 6-ounce skeins. So I'll get 2 more of those. So I'll have quite a lovely little stack of fiber for that. And then I don't have it over here, but I'm also finishing up my first spindle spin. I'm just gonna get it just gotta show you. So I've been working on this spindle spin. This is my first spindle spin. And this is Cheviot. I think it's from Woolen Fiend, I'm pretty sure. And I have 2 spindles full. I'm on my 3rd one. I'm trying to do about 1 ounce per spindle, and then I'll ply them. I might just wheel ply them. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't decided. So I also need to get that plied. And downstairs, I am working on my latest CVM spin. If you've been around here for a while, you know that probably my favorite braid to spin is CVM. And it's probably just because it wasn't the first sweater spin I did, but it was a big sweater spin. And I got this CVM from Michigan, and I just love how it turned out. It's actually became my new weekender, which is on the floor behind me blocking. But I just love it so much. So I then wanted to do CVM again, but see if I could get it in a different natural shade. So I found this really, really deep kind of chocolate gray. And so I am really close to finishing the singles for that. I have been working on it, I feel like, for like almost 2 years. It's been a long spin. I am doing it supported long draw, and I've got 1.5 bags left to go. And I think there's about 4 ounces in a bag. So I'm going to finish up those singles. Because it's taken me so long, I'm a little nervous about my consistency across all of these bobbins over all this time. So I am considering winding my singles onto some of my weaving bobbins and plying from those to really mix them up. I think I would end up with a much more consistent yarn. I don't know if I have it in me to do that. So we shall see. I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, Spicy Pete. I'll call you back in a minute. Okay, so that's all my spins I'm trying to finish. So I've got 4 projects to ply. I'm almost done with those other singles. And then I need to come up with a plan for what I'm going to spin. I did sign up for Spun Right rounds. I want to call it an advent because it's like a daily bump of fiber that you open for the tour. So I am going to spin that every day. My goal for that is to spindle spin that, especially because I'm going to be traveling. As I have told y'all, I'm going to be traveling for part of the tour. And so I thought that's why I got into spindle spinning, so that I could continue to spin during Tour de Fleece. So I might do all that on spindles, but I have not decided the rest of my projects. And I'm like, what do I want to do? So anyways, if you are participating, I'd love to know, are you on a team? What team are you on? Have you set any goals? Tell me all about it in the comments below. And I think that about sums it up for this week. I hope that y'all have a great weekend, and hopefully your weather will be better than ours. We are looking at more rain. We've had a lot of cold, rainy days. We are kind of desperate for some sunshine, but right now it's not too bad. So I might go sneak out there while I can, and I hope you get to make something this weekend. Maybe some memories with your family, maybe some baking, maybe some spinning, knitting, all the good things. And I hope to see you back here next week. Bye.